Gaza. It has backed Israel in its invasion of Syria. It has backed Israel in every single measure. There's a new Médecins Sans Frontières report that has just come out showing the absolutely genocidal conditions in Gaza right now, the absolute destruction of all humanitarian support for the population. The United States has unequivocally backed all of this. And so this is an area where one can't have the luxury of being shocked, because every shocking thing that's happened has been treated as a normal, blasé matter. Netanyahu, remember, is under indictment by the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity and for war crimes. But that's just fine with the United States. He's our ally. We support him. We provide the financing. We provide the munitions. We stand with Israel. We support Israel's invasion of Syria. So it's possible that they would do something as reckless and dangerous and possibly as provoking a World War III as attacking Iran. It is absolutely possible. Well, of course, the very sad point is we had an agreement on the Iran nuclear program, the JCPOA, which was signed in 2016 and which Donald Trump in his first term immediately walked away from. And now Iran is even closer to having nuclear weapons. And Iran is being threatened in its core national security by Netanyahu and by his rhetoric, and therefore implicitly by the United States every day. So this is a terrible situation. We had situations like this in the past, for example, where the Clinton administration had negotiated an arrangement with North Korea to do exactly the same as the JCPOA aimed, and that was for North Korea to stop its nuclear program in return for many actions by the United States, a normalization of relations, an end of sanctions, a supply of energy technologies, and so forth. Even the Clinton administration, which had negotiated these terms, did not follow through because of domestic U.S. politics. But then when the Bush Jr. administration came in 2001, his chief advisor, John Bolton, argued for breaking the agreement, and the agreement was broken. And what did it get us? It got us a heavily nuclear armed North Korea with intercontinental ballistic missile capacity as well. So this is a typical American approach. Threaten, bluster, don't negotiate, don't follow through. And what do you end up with? The opposite of what you're aiming for. You end up with the opposite of national security. What is Trump going to do? I don't know. His administration is filled with ardent pro-Israel figures. He himself has a record of having opposed the JCPOA. His talk about Iran is often extraordinarily harsh. I have spoken with senior Iranian officials throughout the past year. There is every possibility for peace. There's every possibility for negotiation. Whether the United States in the second Trump administration takes that, I can only hope so, but I have no high confidence in that. I do believe that President Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine. I think in general, he's not interested in dragging the United States into any new war, but whether he will pursue the diplomacy needed to achieve the aims of nuclear nonproliferation and peace remains to be seen. The Israel lobby in the United States is relentless. It's powerful. It continues to have a strong hold, not only on the outgoing administration, but on the incoming administration. And it requires a strong presidential leadership to say, following the Israel lobby is not in the American interest. This is very important. It's difficult politically for a president to do, but it's a difficult job. I regard that as the responsibility of a president to protect American security. Going to war with Iran would be the opposite of protecting American security.
The situation in Syria was a huge disagreement between Iran and Turkey, which are two important players in that region. Do you think the fall of Assad would bring them closer, or would they work together to bring some sort of sanity to the region and the difficulties that we're witnessing right now?
I think Syria will continue to be a killing field. It will continue to be a battleground. I don't believe myself that there's likely to be any kind of unified Syria in the coming years. Israel has invaded in the south. The United States backs Kurds in the northeast. Turkey has supported the jihadists, not only in the most recent action to take Damascus, but to enter into battle with the Kurdish forces. Iran has strong interests and is not going away. The idea that this is somehow in any way likely to be settled strikes me as very, very over-optimistic. All of the experience of Western regime change, and this is another Western regime change. Maybe the coup de grace was brought by Turkey, though I'm not even convinced of that entirely, because it was Israel and the United States that played a very large role in the events of bringing down Assad over the past 13 years. But all of the experiences that in events like this, things don't end with the fall of a regime. This typically is the beginning of new civil war. And I think that this is likely in the Syrian context.
In your opinion, the situation in Syria would strengthen the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, or the Donald Trump's presidency and the way he's talking about the region would draw a line between Shia Sunni, and as we saw it before?
I think that there are strong reasons that go beyond Syria for the rapprochement of Iran and Saudi Arabia, not the least of which is that each of these two countries actually wants normalcy and economic development. They actually do not want ongoing war. I think Israel and the United States are the main provocateurs in the region. And I think the failure of the diplomacy to establish peace through a state of Palestine alongside the state of Israel is strangely enough, even though that's just one corner of the Middle East, it's the remaining dominant factor for the continued war. And the reason is that Israel remains on a rampage throughout the region, in Lebanon, in Syria, in wanting war with Iran, of course, its genocidal actions in Gaza, in its immediate determination, it seems, to annex the West Bank. In all of this, Israel is a great destabilizer. And as long as the United States steadfastly backs that destabilization, there cannot be peace in the region. But there is a common interest of Iran and Saudi Arabia in not having this spill into a generalized regional war. And this is the direction it will head if there is a breakdown in that new rapprochement, or if the United States continues to back Israel in its, I think, utterly reckless and destructive vision of the greater Israel, so-called.
We had a meeting between Erdogan and Ursula von der Leyen in which they were talking about the sovereignty of Syria. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he talked about it again. Do you see that we are heading towards some sort of political confrontation between Turkey and Israel, or maybe the United States? Because as you mentioned, there is a conflict with the Kurds in Syria between the United States and Turkey. How is that going to play out between Turkey and Israel?
Everything is possible right now in the Middle East. Israel wants wider war. It wants to pull Trump into a wider war. There will be people in his government that want a wider war. There will be people that oppose it. And Netanyahu definitely is angling for a wider war. So unfortunately, in our world, the decisions of a few people shape the fates of tens or hundreds of millions of people, or even billions of people. And that's the situation that we're in right now. Nobody gets to vote on this. This is a decision of a few people, and they do not behave well very often. So, of course, there could be war between Turkish-backed forces and the United States. There could be easily war between Turkish-backed forces and Israel. That would bring a wider war. There could be a new war with Iran. We don't have clarity on this. The Israel lobby in the United States has been so dominant and so reckless, and Netanyahu is absolutely so profoundly irresponsible, and his government is perhaps even worse than Netanyahu, though that's a little hard to say. But this is a completely extremist government that is absolutely aiming for a wider war. So I'm hoping that sanity prevails, but I'm not counting on it.